Quiet down, quiet in the back. It's time to tap into fantasy. Welcome to Tap Into Fantasy, the podcast with a professional fantasy mind and an amateur beer palate. I'm Lance Gandy. You can find me on X at LG_fantasy. Let's raise a glass, even if it's empty. May the best drafts of your past be the worst of your future. Let's tap in. So every episode, I'll be doing a segment called the opening draft, where I'll open a beer I usually haven't tried and sip along throughout the episode. The first few episodes will be beers I randomly saw at Specs the other day, but I want listeners to be able to suggest new beers I can use on future episodes. Like I said in the intro, I am not anywhere near a professional cicerone, but feel free to write in about any beer you've tried and liked, tried and hated, tried and puked. I don't care. Well, I do care if it's good, but I'm going to be a good sport and hopefully try them all. So please email the show at tapintofantasy@gmail.com with the beer and an explanation of why this beer needs my attention. The best explanations will be chosen and I'll shout you out on the show. Then I'll rank each beer on the Big Beer board on the website. That's a tongue twister. Okay, so the beer for this week, I'm super excited, a little nervous. It's the 2024 Goose Island Bourbon County brand stout. So I saw the vanilla rye stout at Specs and I thought, hey, that sounds like a good time. Then I saw that it was $34 for a pint and I thought, no can do, this is not a tax write-off. So I got a cheaper original stout instead. It's still rated very highly. I know that people say to age this thing for years, but my mouth wouldn't notice the difference anyway, and I want it right now. So this thing it's packing 14.7% ABV, so definitely a sipper for the entire episode. Light sipper. I enjoy bourbon, I enjoy beer, but I've had a few bourbon barrel aged beers in the past and mostly have been a miss. So I'm hoping this one lives up to the hype. So this beer was 4.37 stars on Untappd, which is quite high. I like to read the reviews and the tasting notes on there. A lot of times they make me laugh, so let's pull a few up here. The first one I found is the shit of bourbon stouts. Okay, not gonna lie, that's a lot of hype. The next one, dang, complex. Draft is dope. These are my kind of people. They know it's complex, but that's as complex as their palates go. Samesies. Alright. I'm gonna open this cool Asheville bottle opener. Alright. Let's go ahead and pour this thing. Wow, there is zero head on this. Absolutely zero. Alright. Got it in our Das Boot. Okay. Cheers, guys. This tastes like a vacation I can't afford. That's lovely. It tastes like chocolate and good choices. Just don't mind me making gross sounds all episode. It'll probably happen. Yeah, definitely a sipper though. I can't chug like I could 15 years ago. Okay, so I want to go over a few housekeeping things before we dig into the good stuff. We do have a website with some goodies on it, tapintofantasy.com. You can find my beautiful smiling mug on there with a little about the podcast and me, my best ball and redraft rankings, the big beer board that I mentioned before, and ways to contact me. So you can find it on there, but my um, best ball rankings are uploadable to DraftKings. They are specifically for DraftKings. So make sure to download it as a CSV file and you can upload it to DK to have my rankings as your default. So if you're in a best ball draft, my rankings um, will be on there. So you can draft with those. Some people don't like that. Some people just like to use the ADP rankings, but keep my rankings on the side. I have a download for those people as well that keep the positions separated. I also have PPR rankings for redraft that are downloadable on this site. I may put up half and non PPR closer to the season, but it's not on my priority list at the moment. Um, this beer is. Yeah, this tastes like the entry point into bourbon barrel aged for um, little wussies like me that don't usually drink this stuff. So, wow, yeah, I would recommend this. Okay, let's get into our main topic this episode. It's best ball fantasy drafts, obviously in the name. I'm going to go over everything you need to start and dominate these drafts. Unless you're in the same tournament as me, then you can get bent. Okay, a little bit of backstory. So, best ball is pretty new to the fantasy football streets. So, we're still learning best strategies and roster formations. So, my first time drafting a best ball team was 2021, I believe, when another analyst asked me to try it, but it didn't start getting a lot of traction really until 2022. Um, so, what is the most fun thing about fantasy football redraft leagues? It's the draft, right? You get with your friends, family, whoever's in the league, and you have a party, and you have one of these beers, and that probably ends badly, but that's the fun part, right? So a best ball is draft and forget it. You don't have waivers. You don't decide who starts every week. The players who score the most points on your team start that week. So if a player is injured, then they'll have a zero score. That's why, at least on DraftKings, there's 20 rounds. So you can choose enough players that an injury won't absolutely kill your team. With the info I just gave you, you could technically go draft, but there's so much more strategy and nuance that goes into these drafts. So let's go over that after I drink this $3 sip of beer. Yeah, I don't know if I've had a beer this expensive. It was about uh, 20 $24, I want to say, for a pint. Um, so I feel fancy right now, and you should too. All right, so there are regular leagues that draft in a best ball style. Those are normally pretty low payouts and 10 to 12 people in the league. And those you just need to beat the other people in the league. So you draft a team of, consistent producers with a few upside plays and you should probably do pretty well. But what I'm focusing on are the big boys, the money makers, the tournaments. So there are many thousands of players in most of these tournaments, but the purse can be like 15 mil. Winning could buy you like almost four of these stouts. So let's go over some of these strategies to pay for your poor life choices. In tournaments, upside is key. So players that have spike weeks are normally a headache in redraft, but they're gold in best ball. You don't have to figure out when to start them. You just let them be their best selves for a random 6 weeks of the year. You'll want to pair those players with consistent producers. So during their down weeks, you'll have someone like a Zach Ertz, to score you the most boring 9 points of your life, right? Beer break. All right. Still good. It's still good. If you're drafting more than one team, which you should be doing, live your life, You'll need to worry about exposure. If I have two best ball teams and have Drake May on one, then I have a 50% exposure to him. Just like beers in a fridge, at least for me, you need a variety. Say you really like Kyler Murray this year and have him on 100% of your teams. If he breaks his tiny baby leg halfway through the year, all of your teams are basically done, or at least severely handicapped, and you'll see my team waving to you from the tip top. So, a good strategy if you like a player is to have higher exposure, but limit it to a reasonable amount. But on the flip side, 0% exposure can also be a fatal flaw for your teams. So, let's say you think it's dumb to draft the next fun white boy running back Will Shipley from the Eagles because you think it's a wasted pick with Saquon Barkley getting almost all of the touches in the backfield. If Saquon gets injured for the year, it's a very real possibility that, white boy is a tournament winner and none of your teams have him. The build of your team is extremely important. On this show, we'll focus on DraftKings, and their best ball drafts are around 20 rounds long. Or not around, they are 20 rounds long. The optimal roster construction is 2 to 3 QBs, 4 to 7 running backs, 6 to 9 wide receivers, and 2 to 3 tight ends. So it will depend on how much draft capital you put into each position on how many you draft. So DraftKings is PPR, and you have to start 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and 1 flex every week. So I would lean towards trying to start a wide receiver at the flex position every week. They have the higher ceiling in PPR because they catch more passes for the most part. So I would also lean towards having 3 QBs and 3 tight ends on your teams. But let's go over the scenarios. If you draft an elite QB and another in round 7, you may not need a third, Same strategy with tight ends, although I would probably draft 3 tight ends more times than not. Because they're less consistent than QBs. Especially, if you don't even, let's say you draft your first tight end in round 12. You could potentially just draft 4 tight ends that are all, round 12 or later. That's a viable strategy. So you could definitely do that. One of the most important things I can tell you is in a tournament setting, draft like you're right. So, just grow some gigantic balls and act like everything you're drafting is incredible. You're on an absolute heater. You drafted James Conner at running back 20, the RB for the Cardinals. Put it in your mind that he will have, at the very least, the RB11 finish he had last year. And these tournaments, to finish anywhere where the payoff is anything, your players in the first 8 rounds need to be not injured and be studs. So don't think about, what if James Conner gets injured, and draft Trey Benson as an insurance policy. If James Conner gets injured, your team is probably toast. You need to think of a scenario where James Conner is healthy all year. Then maybe you can draft, white boy wonder Will Shipley, and if Saquon is injured, have 2 viable running backs for the playoffs. Cheers, guys. Man, I'm not getting through this. Yeah, this is going to be a 2-hour long sipper. Okay, so ADP, average draft position, is king or queen, or whichever you prefer. Average draft position is your lifeblood. my favorite team build is called Hero Running Back, where you draft a running back in the first 3 rounds and then hammer all the other positions until at least round 7. It's it's a great strategy, but if running backs all go off the board super early, allow yourself to take an extra receiver. Don't be locked into a certain build. ADP needs to be the most important thing. Also, don't pay too much attention to bye weeks. Keep them in the back of your mind, but they are not the most important thing. It shouldn't keep you from drafting, um, a really good player over a not as good one. I mean, if you have a 2 QB build and they both have the same bye week, then you're 100% getting a 0 at your QB spot that bye week. So make sure that doesn't happen. But if 3 of your wide receivers have the same bye week, it's not the end of the world. Maybe use bye weeks as a tiebreaker between players. So this next thing is something you'll hear just used constantly in the best ball streets: stacking. So actually, remind me never to say best ball streets again. It's just a nerdy ass street. So okay, which should, yeah, I mean that actually should be the name of X, just nerdy ass street. It's nerdy ass street Instagram. Am I right? Instagram is for the hot influencers to subtly show off an ass shot in sepia tone, and an X is for nerds in their underwear posting the optimal best ball build, which I am about to do for you, and you don't know if I'm in underwear or not. I'm not. Okay, so we've gotten off track. So stacking, very important. This means pairing your QB with pass catchers on the same team, and even having the running back from the same team can be beneficial. But I would try very hard to stack every QB you draft with at least one of the pass catchers on their team. But definitely try to make it 2 or 3 if you can. That doesn't mean reaching 3 rounds early on Andre Yoshivas if you have Joe Burrow. But definitely look to take him, a few picks earlier if you want to complete the stack. This works because if Joe Burrow has a monster game, that means it's very likely a pass catcher or 2 of his did. And if the Cincinnati offense is a huge hit in 2025, then you have multiple pieces that are going to do well, that are going to flourish. So it makes sense to, draft multiple of them. A less important but still solid strategy is to look at the Week 17 schedule, and build a correlation on your teams. So you can have, say, a Week 17 schedule on the side of your screen, and also my rankings, and then the actual draft. Is a pretty good setup. It's a setup that I use a lot. So Week 17 is the final week in best ball. It's where the big money's made. So you want to have the most correlation you can on that week. So the Bengals play the Arizona Cardinals in Week 17 this year. If you have Joe Burrow along with Jamar Chase and Mike Gesicki all stacked, a good strategy could also be drafting Trey McBride on the Cardinals. So if the Bengals put up 45 points on the Cardinals, that means Kyler Murray will flail those baby legs as fast as they'll go and sling the ball to try and keep up. That means a huge game for the Bengals skill players as well as the Cardinals. And big points means big money for you. I say Kyler Murray has baby legs, but he's taller than me, so I guess I have even babier legs. That's why I'm in this profession, right? So one more thing to consider is unique builds. So in a tournament setting, there is thousands of drafted teams, so you need to stand out from the crowd. Week 15 starts the playoffs in best ball. If Kenneth Walker scores you a shit ton of points that week and you win, congrats, you win some money and you go to the next round. That next round, there's going to be a ton of Kenneth Walker led teams that made it there because he went off for them too. So the other players on your team need to be both different and difference makers. Like you can't rely on Kenneth Walker because most of the teams probably have him. I want to let you all know that this year on DraftKings you can enter the NFL Best Ball $15 million tournament and earn a ticket to enter again for free. I have definitely taken advantage of this offer, so I advise you to do the same. New customers also get $150 in bonus bets instantly if you bet just $5. See DraftKings terms of use for information on eligibility. All right, I hope you got something useful out of this best ball breakdown. This Bourbon County Stout is going straight to the top. That's right, it is the #1 ranked beer on the big beer board, mostly because it's the only beer on the list. But that is going to do it for this first pour of Tap Into Fantasy. If you liked what you heard, make sure to follow the show. It helps the show find other degenerates like you. Hit me up on X at LG_fantasy. Thanks for tapping in, and until next time, happy pours, happy scores.